All right, what is going on, everybody? How you doing? Welcome to another episode of Talking Buffalo, your weekday daily driver for Buffalo Sports Talk and more. My name is Patrick Moran. Thank you to everyone out there, as always, for listening, for watching, however you consume Talking Buffalo. Appreciate you very much. I also appreciate today's sponsors, Sunny Reds, 1841 Abbott Road, just minutes down the street from Highmark Stadium, one of the best places in all of Western New York for food, drinks, just a really cool place to hang out and have a good time. On the video side, as usual, right now, I am live 9:30 p.m., pretty late now on a Sunday night. I'm joined, as usual, by my buddy down there in New York City, Joe from Queens, man. What's going on, dude? How you doing?
I prefer you to say in Queens, not New York City. Thank you.
What's the real difference?
It's
As a
Queens.
New
It's
Yorker,
different. It would be like
clearly
it-
that bothers you. As a New Yorker, what's the
no. I'm messing with you. I don't really.
don't
It's
give a
fine.
shit?
New York City. Queens is more like I don't know. There's like a representation. Look, there's 5 boroughs. There's Manhattan. There's Queens. There's Brooklyn. The Bronx. Staten Island. There's like a pride for being from those regions, I guess.
All right,
So,
fair.
but I don't really care. I'm just busting your chops because that's what I do for a living.
But there's the tap for the
Yeah.
people listening who don't watch. To hear the tapping. What's
Yeah.
what's the beer of the week?
The beer of the week is Lawson's Mad River Maple Ale. So it's from, I believe, Vermont. Everyone on the video side can see this. My neighbors, I think I told you this last week, but I'll do it again. My neighbors had come, were in Vermont, and they came back and they got me some beer, and we traded some beers. And this was some of the beer they gave to me. But this is very good. Lawson's is a good brewery. So I'm excited to have this.
Cheers.
Yeah, cheers. What's your hangover at right now between 1 and 10?
4.7 out of
4.7.
10.
Okay.
Had a fun time on Saturday. Yeah, I got caught into a poker game. No bullshit, man.
Yeah.
I went to a buddy's house. We had a little guy's day or whatever you want to call it. We all went to my
off.
house. Yeah, bro off. And I thought we were gonna hang out. He's got a basement with a pool table. I thought we were just in a bar, so I thought we were gonna kind of just sit down there and shoot the shit. And it ended up being a poker night, and I freaking hate playing poker. But
yeah, you sent me a photo of you guys, and I was like, "Why are you sending this to me?" And then you were like, "I'm drunk." I'm like, "Congratulations!"
yeah,
So
it was I took a shot. I forgot the name of it now. It was a $400 bottle of bourbon. This guy brought it over. $400, Wellers, something like that. And it kind of embarrassing. So he pours, there's like 4 or 5 of us, and he pours it into a rock glass. And that's the kind of bourbon that's meant to be sipped. And without thinking, instinctively, we all go cheers, and I threw it down like a shot. That is not the kind of booze with the price value. Not to mention, it's like 114 proof that you bang away with a shot.
like to say hi to Tooch and Mark in the chat who said what's up to us. I just want to say, so this beer, I might do a ratings beer every week. Like usually I'm like, yeah, that's fine. I'm going to do like a 1 through 4. This I'm going to give a solid 3 for this this Mad River Maple. It's a rich maple ale. It's loaded with 100% pure Vermont syrup, maple syrup. It does have a little bit of a sweet taste to it. So yeah, I give this a 3. So
I'm going to let people know now. We're going to kind of have like a hodgepodge episode. Mike from Arkansas, what's up, buddy? In the chat, are good to have you. Kind of a hodgepodge. Got some questions because I'm not doing a pod bag this week. Some kind of mostly Bills related questions that I'll share with everybody listening. Get some insight from Joe as well. We got some segments. Want to have a little bit of a discussion, media kind of stuff too, about the way this team is covered. I think it's pretty interesting. Mike Harrington over on the hockey side had a tweet that I want to get your response to as well today. So lots of stuff, kind of a loaded helter-skelter type of episode. We're obviously going to talk plenty of Bills. For that, though, I do want to start kind of, I'll do my best here on a little bit of a serious note. I kind of want to get this out of the way early on. I feel like, doing this show 5 days a week, I kind of feel like I'm in sort of an open book. I talk to the same people every week. A lot of people gotten to know me, so on and so forth. I had I don't want to say my first major I had the health scare of my life over this past week, and maybe most people wouldn't know it through the show, but I do. Like, I watched last Monday's and Tuesday's episodes back, and I was like a zombie because my mind was elsewhere. For people who don't know, I have COPD. I was diagnosed with that 13 years ago. I've been living with it now for the last 13 years, and it is what it is. Basically, it's a breathing disease, in my lung, emphysema, COPD, kind of along the lines of the same thing. And I have a pulmonologist, and I go to get an annual exam, and just typically over the last 11 years or so, it's been how you feel. And I tell them, I could do everything normally. I just can't exert myself. I lose my breath real quick. And it's always like, hey, here's medication, just keep taking it. Come talk to me in a year. There's not a lot you could do for COPD. There's just not. It's not a curable disease. Anyway, this past exam or consultation, I should say, with my pulmonologist, it had been a handful of years since I've taken a CT scan. So they sent me to one and just wanted to get a good look at my lungs. So I go, and this was in late February, and I got the CT scan, and then I got a call back a couple of days later from the doctor saying that they found a new nodule in my left lung. And obviously that scared the shit out of me. I got a couple nodules in my lung. Nodules could be anything from scar tissue and inflammation to lung cancer. So anyway, they said we need to take a PET scan. And that's a much more fancier test that can really determine things. And I got to tell you, dude, that week or so, the fear and the anxiety that I had is through the roof. So last Thursday, I took the PET scan, and I've never been for anything like that in my life. You go into this quiet room, and you got to fast and do all kinds of things for 24 hours before. And then they do they prick you and do kind of like an insulin test, a sugar test to make sure your levels aren't too high or they can't do the test. Then they inject you with this kind of sugar stuff. And you got to sit in this quiet room for an hour, just tortured alone with your thoughts. And the nurse, well, I'm sure didn't mean to, just scare me. It made it sound like it was already a foregone conclusion that I had lung cancer. What kind of chemo treatments have you had before, radiation, yada, yada, yada. So I'm there for an hour, and then I go into the CT scan, and they say it'll take 2 or 3 days. I had a doctor's appointment 2 weeks from that date to discuss the results. But within 24, 48 hours, dude, I literally couldn't sleep. Fear, anxiety. I probably thought about dying more over those 3 or 4 days than I ever have in my life. I pretty much convinced myself that it was going to come back malignant and that I had lung cancer. And last Tuesday, I couldn't focus. I couldn't concentrate at all. And by the time I got to be Wednesday, my wife was home that day. I said, I can't take it anymore. I got to call the doctor. And I'm telling you, dude, the 5 minutes before the phone sitting there on my table, my fingers were literally, I could barely dial the numbers. I was so scared. I was shaking, and I called, and, long story short, good news is that it was benign. I mean, it's not great news because I still have more inflammation and swelling in my lung, but I thought I had lung cancer, and I have a family history on my father's side with lung cancer, cancer. Point being, just probably, dude, the scariest week of my entire life, just not knowing, and just that fear and anxiety of what that phone call or what that doctor appointment was going to be, man. It really sucked. Really sucked. Happy-ish kind of ending to it, though. But I wouldn't wish that on my worst enemy, that feeling that I had, except for that one Saturday where I was like blacked out drunk and I was just forgetting about reality for the world. It was literally, I honestly probably couldn't spend. I remember when we were doing our show last week, I was hiding. You didn't even know about this at that time last week. I couldn't spend 5 waking minutes not thinking about that shit. Just mental anguish and torture, man. So I don't know. I'm all right though.
I'm glad you're all right, man. That's
here to annoy hopefully everybody for time to come. But yeah, COPD, dude, is that ain't no joke. And I do these shows, and you can't really tell because, I got my mics tuned in pretty well, but I have breathing issues, and, it's just you get very wheezy a lot, and I go up and down the stairs, and I lose it. I'm a lazy dude anyway to begin with, so it's now, now I have an excuse to sit in my office and do most of my work
Mhm.
from there. But anyway, thank you everyone out there who was
No.
showed some concern. I put some on Facebook, got a overwhelming response. Really feels good. Sometimes, I'm an attention seeking whore, you know that.
Oh yeah,
But
100%.
but sometimes just to get that, reaffirmation from people that they care and stuff like that, and that they're happy that things went well, it meant a lot to me. So appreciate it. Anyway, just want to get that out there because I feel like I've been kind of weird over this last week on the show, at least most of the past week or so, because it was on my mind trying to just get through these shows. So just want to put that out there for everyone.
I'm glad that you're doing all right, and yeah, I'm glad you're doing well. Everyone should go to the doctor too, get your annual checkups for everything, especially when you're over 40. I got to go for my physical next month, so I think I'm due for a colonoscopy or whatever the fuck it's called. It's coming up.
You're over 40, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's 45 though now, the number, because I would have gotten it by now, but I think now I am 45, so I think yeah, that shit's coming. Pun intended.
I still haven't done that.
Oh,
I've been
man, do that, especially if
I'm going to. Well, I do feel better because I just had a PET scan done on my body, and if there was cancer, active cancer cells, I wouldn't know. Well, anyway, yeah, but you are right. Everybody go to the doctor. One other thing too, I'm going to dive into the Bills stuff. This Thursday, everybody knows Del Reed. If you're a Bills fan, you know Del Reed, the OG man, one of the founders of Bills Mafia, the owner of 26 Shirts, of course, as well. He's got a podcast series, Bills Mafia Ties, and he was kind enough to ask me to come on his show, and I did. We recorded it not too long ago, and that's going to be dropping on Thursday. I'll put a link and stuff like that in the show notes. It was a really fun interview. I got to sit down with Del, got to be on the other side. It's fun to be on a show sometimes instead of having to do all the other work and just show up, do the thing, and leave. And we had a really fun conversation about just Bills fandom and growing up and being a Bills fan and just some of the highlights and lowlights of covering this team.
How long was the interview for?
About 35 minutes or so. They're not particularly long.
Did you give me a shout out?
Did what?
Did you give me a shout out? Were you like,
you know what? You might have gotten a shout out.
Because you always name drop me on all the podcasts and never on.
I think you know what? Well,
you always do.
You probably found your way on there. He put up a clip. There's a clip already going around. I saw it on Instagram about the Dante Whitner thing that.
Oh yes,
I went through. Do you remember that? By the way?
Oh God, yes. I if I were to put together the Mount Flushmore or Rushmore of Pat Moran before he did this podcast, definitely Dante Whitner, him saying he was going to box you, is up there as on there. Like you trained with Joe Macy or something, or you said you were going to, and there's that. There's a Bill Cowher sign that you somehow funded, and you got people to give you money for that. You probably stole all of it, probably knowing you. Just probably went to the microphone you're talking to right now. There's the Sean Merriman stuff. I won't get into that because that's opening up old wounds. And then the fourth one, I'm trying to think. What would be the fourth Pat Moran story of?
I think there's
Thurman. Thurman was pissed off at you because you took a photo of Marshawn Lynch had a letter or some bulletin board material in his.
About that.
Yeah, he had it in his locker room. I don't know how you got in the Bills locker room at that point. Like Birchtold wouldn't let anyone in there. You must have freaking snuck in through the laundry cart. But like, yeah, you took a snapshot of like Marshawn Lynch had like something that Thurman texted or tweeted about. Like they weren't really buddies. And like you took a picture of that and then you posted it and it kind of got trend. I remember, I think Graham did a story about that when Graham used to do the AFC East thing.
Yeah.
So those are like the four Pat Moran. Like you were much more of a rebel. Now you're just known for like you're on a podcast and you're arguing with pandering Pat. You're arguing with Damar Hamlin's dad and I
wasn't arguing with him. He verbally
the cover and in the cover, one bros hate you and you hate them, but you don't talk about it ever. No, I'm just kidding about that. Shifty eyes.
Well, we did talk. We didn't. The one thing we did talk about on the show to leading into Thursday for people who might be listening to this who don't know what we're talking about. Back in I think it was 2011, I had a blog and it was called Buffalo Sports Daily, and I wrote a column. A couple columns, and I was incredibly critical of Dante Whitner, the Bills' 8th overall pick and starting safety. I was critical of him, and he took it. He got wind of it. He denies that he ever read it, but he's lying. These players, by the way, they lie. They read all this shit. 90% of these players read almost everything, whether they tell you or whether they don't. And that was 10, 11 years ago. Nowadays, I'm sure they listen to a lot of the podcasts, or at least they find out when stuff is talked about them through somebody, and they'll go and listen to that part. But anyway, Dante Whitner got hold of it and started talking shit to me on Twitter, and then ultimately got mad enough at me to challenge me to a fight. And then it went from being a fight to a boxing match. Then it went from a boxing match to a charity boxing match, a 3-round boxing match. And he never thought in a million years I would accept. And ultimately I did, which his agent kind of put the kibosh on that real quick. His agent said, "You ain't doing that shit. You got nothing to gain," which his agent was right. And yeah, the Joe Macy thing, I got Joe Macy he was going to mockingly train me. We're going to make some funny, fake training montages of me training with Joe Macy in the gym. And we were going to have a lot of fun with it. I knew the fight was never actually going to happen, but yeah, and it got picked up all over. I remember Pro Football Talk and ESPN.com had pieces on that about, Dante Whitner challenging a blogger to a fight. It was fun. Good times. I forgot about some of the stuff you just mentioned.
Oh God, yeah, I have a good memory, sadly.
Yeah, you do. Someday we'll talk about the Thurman Thomas photo with Marshawn Lynch and that whole story. We'll talk about that on the show another time. But anyway, all right. So I want to get into a couple questions submitted questions here from people. Matthew said 2023, it was Terrell Bernard and Khalil Shakir. Last year, it was Benford and probably Connor McGovern. Who are one or two breakout candidates for the Buffalo Bills for this coming season? Let me pose that. And by the way, if you're watching this on the video side live, if you got any questions, chime in with the chat. We'll throw a couple of these up as well. But let's start right there right now. So again, 2 years ago, Bernard and Shakir kind of had their breakouts. This past year, Christian Benford for sure, Connor McGovern as well. When you look at this year's team right now as things stand, who are one or two of the guys that you probably would consider, your strongest breakout candidates?
Gosh, I would say Coleman. I think can break out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he can in terms of look, the depth chart of wide receiver is not great. I know that the Palmer versus Amari Cooper thing, I'm sorry, I know at the end Cooper wasn't great, obviously, but
right.
When you go back to the trade, Cooper was supposed to be he's going to be the number one guy. He's going to get all these targets, and he didn't. Palmer's not that guy. And I think there is still that hole of who's going to be the guy, and I feel in my opinion, if you look at Josh Allen's track numbers, he's gotten okay numbers out of tight ends. Dawson Knox had a couple of nice seasons. Kincaid was fine his rookie year, even though it took a while for him to gel, and I still think his yards per catch was pretty shitty. But it's always wide receivers that he's getting the ball to. It just feels like he just has more chemistry with getting the ball out to those guys. And I feel like Coleman is going to be that guy on offense. And I still think they wanted to work out. They traded Diggs, got him out of here, and people were critical of it. And obviously that simmered down a lot because Diggs is a free agent with an ACL tear. Who knows when he's going to come back. But I feel like they want that to work out more. I think he'll be I think he has the potential to be a breakout star next year for them on offense.
I agree with you 100%. Quick little detour as you were talking. I got a text. Friend of the show, Buffalo Rumblings, Anthony Marino. You know Anthony as well.
That guy.
One of the nicest people on the entire planet.
The nice Marino.
He is definitely he's the nicer Marino. Let's just put it that way. Anyway, who is a very mild-mannered, he's not like us. Let's just put it that way. Dude don't swear much. He texted me.
An Italian who doesn't swear much? That's pathetic.
I know, kind of weird, but yes. Yeah. Anyway, he texted me. He says, "Get your fucking colonoscopy." So he's telling both of us, "Get your fucking colonoscopy." More importantly, I'm glad you're okay. But yeah, if Anthony Marino was swearing at me and you to get a colonoscopy, I definitely think it's time to.
I asked my doctor last year, and she said you got to wait till next year. So I'm going to do that next year. I can't wait to whatever the hell they do. Get
probably
things
yelling at
shut
me
up
more.
my ass. Can't wait. It's going to be fun.
Anyway, all right, back to that question. You said Keon Coleman, and I agree with you. And let me take it a step further. It better be Keon Coleman.
Yeah.
It better be Keon Coleman, because this football team, with what they've done this offseason, this free agency period, Matt Collins, who played a lot over him last year, is gone. Amari Cooper is very much, he's probably not coming back. I would be shocked if he's back. They didn't sign anybody I mean, Josh Palmer is a guy. In fact, we'll talk about him in a second. They didn't make that big move. They didn't go get a big fish. They didn't go get an alpha number one. That tells me by their actions is that they're counting on Keon Coleman to take that next step. He's got to be a breakout guy. Last year, he had 29 catches, 556 yards, 4 touchdowns. Good start. Well, I'd say, I don't say a good start. He had a promising start to his rookie season. The injury definitely derailed him. He was a shell of himself. He's admitted that. Brandon Beane's kind of talked about it. He was not able to get back to being a consistent, good football player after the wrist injury that he suffered against Miami when Jordan Poyer hit him. Anyway, he's got to be better. If he has 29 catches for 556 yards, even if he has 35, 40 catches for 650 yards, that's a terrible season by his standards, I believe, going into year 2. And I think the passing game will suffer. So if you're just going to draft a rookie or sign a low-tier free agent that still may be out there, you are counting on Keon Coleman to be a significant player. Without going through a list right now, Joe, wouldn't you say Keon Coleman is probably maybe in the top maybe 6 to 8 most important Bills players for next year? Does that feel like, off the top of your head, I mean, without this being a thought exercise, I say certainly top 8.
I think so. I think him, Kincaid on offense, maybe Ray Davis a little bit, because if they don't re-sign Cook, I feel like he's going to be the guy that people are going to look at. And if he comes in and is like a combination of himself last year with Ty Johnson, let's just say something happens where they go down to 2 running backs. It could be a big year for him. Because, if he's the man up, he'll get paid possibly down the road. But I could see him doing some stuff. That's on offense for importance. Yeah. And I'll say this for a breakout guy for defense. Gosh, that's a tough one. Who would it be for you?
I got one.
You got one? All right. Let me try to think about it. It's definitely not Hamlin, because is it Williams?
No. Although, I mean, it could potentially be. I mean, he's not going to start, but again, the Bills got 2 linebackers that get banged up. The opportunity could be there. No, my guy on defense, when I think breakout candidate, would be Cole Bishop. He didn't play much last year as a rookie. He's a 2nd-round pick, so you certainly, allocated a strong draft investment in him. He would be expected. I would say he's an odds-on favorite to start this year. I would suspect strongly he damn sure better start over Damar Hamlin, all right? Because if he cannot beat out Damar Hamlin over the summer, I won't wait 4 years like I did with Kyrie to call Cole Bishop a bust. If Cole Bishop is healthy and he goes to camp this summer and he cannot considerably beat out Damar Hamlin, he's a bust to me before even year 2 even starts. If you're not better than Damar, you're a bust as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, the opportunity. You're a breakout candidate, you got to have the opportunity to do those things. So he's the only guy.
And look, they're known to redshirt their higher, rounds through 3, 4, or 2 through 4. We'll just say they're known to do that for redshirting guys, and that's what they did with Bishop. So, yeah.
I got one other guy too. So we agreed on Keon, Cole Bishop, 2 rookies from last year. I'll go with a free agent signing for my 3rd and last one. I think Josh Palmer could become a breakout candidate. 39 catches for 584 yards last year. That's not great, but it's not terrible. And he's been stuck with the Chargers. I think you and I might have talked about this last week. Yeah, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams for a couple of years. Last year was McConkey and Quentin Johnston, 2 early draft picks. He's been that 3rd receiver. He might have an opportunity this year. if Keon Coleman, is not playing that good and Shakir's out there, Palmer's probably your third receiver and he could do some good things. So it wouldn't shock me to see Palmer have like a 55, 60 catch season for the Bills. And if he did so, I think that would be kind of breakout territory for him. Let's get to another one here. At Jazz Unlimited wanted to know, NFL honestly needs to get their suspension system fixed. I feel like there's no consistency. How does someone like Von Miller get 4 games for an all but charged domestic abuse, but a bad supplement? It's not like these dudes were shooting steroids, get 6 games. It's going to be interesting what Rashee Rice gets for his suspension. It's going to be more than 6, right? Question mark. That's his question. I have no idea what's going to happen with Rice. But back to kind of what the spirit of that question was. I think there's something wrong with that where you might be popping a supplement that you're not supposed to, and you get 6 games for it, while somebody like Von Miller, these domestic violence arrests, which happen enough, even if his charges were dropped or not, he ended up getting 4 games.
Yeah,
you see that a lot.
6 seems like a lot, especially for like, a banned supplement. If you had like priors, sure, it used to be 4 back in the day, and I don't know, I didn't even realize it with the 6 because no one really tests positive all that much. You don't really see too many stories of it, but yeah, there's definitely like, guys can get in, and Ray Rice didn't get suspended until like that video came out, then he got cut or whatever that happened, So yeah, there's a bit of a double standard, I would say there. Like you definitely 6 seems like a lot, and yeah, in terms of
it does for a first time offense, as far as I know, the first time for both Michael Hoyt and
it's not been their first. I'm assuming we would have heard about it by now. I mean, we're not that
6 games. I wonder, I don't know. I probably should find out if they can appeal and maybe those get reduced or not. Seems to be a prevailing feeling amongst a lot of Bills fans, and we talked about this a little bit last week, and content creators too, that it's not a big deal. Like a lot of people think it's not a big deal, and in some cases, some people are even saying, you know what, the Bills would be better off for that because less wear and tear on them. It's 35% of that salary cap, with their contracts, that it'll be less of a hit this year because of the money lost or the suspensions, fresher towards the end of the season. Things along. I don't subscribe to that theory.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, we've talked about that. I'll just add this one thing too. Like, let's just say next year they don't do much. What excuse are the apologists going to give to him? Well, he couldn't play, so he wasn't enabled in the system, and he needed to be there for 6 weeks so he can adjust to the system because the system is what matters. It's like, okay, you know what I mean? Like that would be the excuse. Like he wasn't involved in the system from freaking week 1 until the end, so he was rusty or whatever the fuck. That's I'm saying, like, yeah, like there's a lot. Like 2 guys is a lot. I'm sorry, it just is, and I get it, and I know what's gonna happen. Like I already can like vision like the Bills are 5-1, and then like some fucking jabroni on Twitter or X is gonna be like, hey, remember all those people who panicked over the steroid, over the guy testing whatever? And it's like, okay, yeah, I do. Okay, but the point is, as I said, you could have spent that money on something else. You also, as of right now, don't know if those guys were playing well because of using banned substances. It's like, I don't know. I'm not a freaking. I know you can get masking agents. I knew a kid that did that when he tested negative for a freaking drug test because he went to Canada, or no, Terrapin Station he went to, and he got some sort of thing that he drank. I don't know if they could do that anymore. That was like 30 years ago. Goddamn, I'm old. But all I'm saying is, yeah, it is a big deal. It's not going to destroy their season or anything like that. But yeah, it doesn't look great. And I know folks love Brandon Beane and him talking, and the Bills are always going to get the benefit of the doubt, especially on by the bro beat and the content bros and all those people I love.
I'll add to this, and it's not that I think necessarily they're right in some regards, like them, having less wear and tear, and ultimately it does matter when your team's together and healthy and played its best in January. That is fair, but here's my point, and this is where I continue to push back. It's not the Bills' birthright that they're going to be. You said they'll be 5-1 after 6 games. It's not their birthright that they're going to be 5-1. It's not their birthright that they've won the AFC East in March before the season even starts. You got to get to the playoffs. You got to win your division to begin with. and 6 games is more than a third of the regular season. That's a lot to not have 2 guys that you consider pretty key pieces to give good contracts to be part of your defensive rotation. The Bills could have a tough start to the schedule. They could start slowly. There's lots of issues that the Bills could, they could stumble out of the gate. If we would have talked a year ago, Joe, and said, "Oh, the Washington Commanders are going to be in the NFC Championship game," you would have been like,
Yeah.
"What?" 2 years ago, Houston was 2-14 or whatever it was, or 2-15, and then they win their division. The last 2 years, they've won their division right now. So you never know. You never know if the Patriots, the Jets, Miami, this could be their year where it's a competitive division, and lots of things could happen. So it is a big deal because, again, it's not any kind of lock that the Bills are just going to run away with the AFC East and nothing matters until December or January. You got to make a decision. Ask the Cincinnati Bengals last year, who started so shitty that they couldn't climb out of the hole if the first 6 to 8 weeks of the season matters.
I'll also say this about like they're going to be fresh shit. Think about this. How many defensive linemen since Sean McDermott has been like in charge have gotten hurt where they were out, aside from Von Miller, because he tore out his ACL. That wasn't wear and tear. He was on the field and the turf grabbed him. How many guys have been out like for numerous games on his defensive line? Greg Rousseau's been pretty healthy. Ed Oliver's been pretty healthy. Daquan Jones got hurt, but that guy's over 30. AJ Epinesa has been there. Jerry Hughes used to be there. I say all of this because why? Because they have the defensive line rotation of doom. So everyone's always going to be fresh because you're playing like 30, 40 snaps a game. So you're always going to be fresh. So it's not like, oh yeah, those guys are going to be fresh. Like what? They're going to be fresh from what? Playing 30 snaps a game? Like I said, it's mostly just the optics of it. Like you knew about one, and then the other one you kind of didn't know about it. And I know people are bending. There are some content people who are bending over backwards trying to like defend the Bills, and like I'm sorry, just like how do you not know? And I am curious if someone will like it won't be in that town for God's sakes, but like if there's some way for anyone to like dig up and talk to other GMs around the league and go, is this common? Where like you sign a guy and he tested positive, because that, as you and I had talked about it, like that's hardly ever happened.
Yeah, I hear you, man. All right, on the video side, I'm going to be back in literally like 5 seconds. We're going to get to some more Bills questions, and we got some other topics coming as well. So be right back, literally. All right, back here, Joe from Queens. On the video side, we are live late on a Sunday night. Podcast, of course, coming out on Monday morning. Talking Buffalo Bills. We're going to get to some other stuff as well. But let's continue with a couple more of these questions that I found interesting. At Taylor 1980 said, the idea of trading James Cook makes me sick. James Cook gave Buffalo their running game. Bottom line, be smart, Brandon Beane. Be freaking smart. I've talked about this on the show. I want to get a little bit of insight from you. I think it would be a really stupid mistake for the Bills to trade James Cook for a 3rd round pick or 4th round pick or some kind of combination of stuff like that. If you're talking about Josh Allen and how many prime years he has left, make it make sense to me that you want to get a rookie in here, or you give Ray Davis, let him become the number 1. But James Cook is such a valuable weapon to this offense. We saw it last year. And the point that I made, let him walk after this year, because then you go get a 3rd round comp pick. Let him go get a monster mega deal from somewhere else. You'll get a 3rd round pick ultimately for that. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Is there any? Well, I shouldn't say any, because there's always a scenario.
There's always something.
Are you trading James Cook unless you absolutely have no choice? It just doesn't make sense to me. Maybe it makes a little more sense to you. Doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm only trading him if you get a 2nd rounder, or if you get a player that can play right away that's good. So, like, let's just say, hypothetically speaking, what is the last time we remember a running back getting traded for another player? Happened here, or like at least I remember, just popped in my head. Kiko Alonso for Sean McCoy. Yeah. Let's just say you traded Cook for a cornerback that was what Kiko Alonso was supposed to be. Now, we know what happened to Kiko. Kiko was not the same. He was amazing that first year. He was one of the best rookies I ever saw play for the Bills. Like, he was awesome that year.
Yeah, girls loved him too.
Yeah, yeah, whatever. Yes. But if you were to get a cornerback that was like the version of Kiko Alonso was for those first 2 years in his league, I would consider that. Now again, that's just me being like, who is the Kiko Alonso of like cornerbacks in the league, where you had a guy who was in the top 5 for rookie of the year, because that's what he was. That was a cornerback. I would consider that. Now, am I going to do a third rounder? No, it's not going to help you. And as you said, like the comp formula, no. But if you're trading Cook for like a need of a young guy, like again, that's the only thing I can think of as of right now. Like, give me a guy. Yeah, I would do that. You know what I mean? But yeah, for a third rounder, I'm not doing that. Even if you're like, oh, we're going to lose him anyway. Like you said, you're not going to trade him. You're not going to, running backs don't get traded that. Or they do get traded. You're just not getting a lot for that guy. You're just not.
Yeah, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you too, man. I got to give you a little bit of credit here. I never really thought of that situation. I'm so adamant that the Bills should never ever trade James Cook. But to your point, I would say right now, and I'll just say the next question, because it was about, do you see any glaring holes on this team? And the short and easy answer is cornerback. I think that's pretty obvious. Dane Jackson is your second best corner on this roster right now. But yeah, if I don't know a player specifically, but if the Bills were offered a really solid starting cost-controlled cornerback for James Cook and a player-for-player deal, then I'm willing to move on for James Cook, because I don't think you're lessening the 2025 Buffalo Bills. Now, you can't turn your back to the future, but you also got to be in the present. You got an MVP quarterback who's not getting any younger at this point. I'm just not trading. Would you say James Cook's a top 5 player on the Buffalo Bills right now? I think I would.
Top 5.
Sure.
I wouldn't say top. You know, it goes back again, Pat, to I just don't have that much respect for running backs.
Okay.
And like, it's a little bit of that. And like, all right, top 5. I'm just going to lay out top 5 off the top of my head. Josh Allen.
Sure.
Deion Dawkins.
Yep.
Spencer Brown, I think it's better.
Probably. Yes. Yeah. He's a top right tackle.
Ed Oliver, Greg Rousseau.
Nope.
You think those guys are better?
I definitely don't think Ed Oliver's better. I don't.
Well, Ed Oliver's gone to the Pro Bowl and he's been voted in. I mean,
he's streaky.
Well, then even then, like Christian Benford's, I think, is better.
Yes, Benford.
Okay,
Benford.
Terrell Bernard is debatable with Cook. I don't know. I mean, it's more. I really do believe, like, if you got rid of James Cook and you had another running back that you could just plug in, I don't think they're going to – I think they'll lose a little bit, but it's not going to be that much. And I'm not saying I want them to do that. I don't. The only way I would want them to do that if they pick something else, like we used, as I said, the Kiko Alonso McCoy deal or whatever. Like, I don't want to get rid of him just to get rid of him. And it's like, oh, well, we're going to roll the same 53 guys now and just put another guy. You know, I wouldn't do that. So
I guess when I asked you about him being a top player, I guess my mindset was this: if your offense is basically running it back, you lost Cooper, you lost Hollins, you signed Palmer, you'll probably draft a rookie. Chenault's going to be a camp guy in the mix, whatever. You're basically running it back, though. Same offensive line, tight ends, running backs. Yeah. And you're going to get rid of, your best running back. Let's just put it that way. He is their best running back. I think we can all agree on that. Is that giving you the best chance to win a Super Bowl this year? And I just don't see.
It depends who you get. Again, it depends who you would get. If you're just kicking him off.
Player trade, yes. But that's the only scenario. Let's just put it that way.
I would love to.
I don't know that I would trade a second rounder. Maybe a second rounder.
I would do it. If it's a second rounder this year, I would do it. If it's next year,
ain't been that good with second rounders, man. There's no sure.
That's true. But I'm just saying, like, it's just running backs are just that. It's a sad position, to be honest. I feel bad for them. to be fair, I would try to think of like what teams would need a running back. Like, I keep thinking the Raiders would need a running back because Pete Carroll's like loves to run the football. Like, maybe they need one, and they got some young guy that he doesn't like.
Yeah, it's got to be a contending team.
Yeah, maybe San Diego, the Rams. Or not the Rams. I'm sorry, the Chargers. Thank you. Yeah, the Chargers. I don't know who was the running back last year. I feel like
J.K. Dobbins.
Yeah, and
I'm not sure what they did. They made a move, but it wasn't a huge.
Yeah, so
the Raiders, the Chargers.
They love to run. Yeah, like they love to run.
There would be other teams. If the Bills made him, if Brandon Beane,
maybe the Dallas is stupid enough. Dallas is dumb.
Sure,
they wanted Elam, so good luck with that. But
there's a half. There would be a market for James Cook if
The only way I'm trading him is if I'm getting a guy that I could put on my roster next year who is kind of like us, as I said, they keep going on.
It worked out last year, but you got rid of Stephon Diggs, who was far and away still your best receiver. Okay. And it worked out. That's fine. You're going to get rid of your running back this year. It's like, that feels like Josh Allen negligence to me. It's like you're just going to keep taking away the best players every year and expect Josh Allen to just be MVP every week and go out and still win games. At some point, you got to have talent around Josh Allen. Anyway, let's get to a couple more of these. At Bob Cross 6114, Moran, where are you from? It's a common name, but your takes are extremely lame.
Yeah,
Like
they are.
Like a Cheektowaga neighborhood garage group.
Yes.
Western New York deserves better.
Yes, they do. Definitely deserve better.
They do, but
they deserve more Sal Capaccios out there. What the F, dude?
What is the people that beef with a Cheektowaga neighborhood garage group or something? I don't even know what that's supposed to be. Let me ask you a question here, because we're kind of, like I said, it's kind of a more of a conversational episode here today.
Yeah,
we're talking about the same things with the Bills so many times before it just becomes.
So I want to take a damn vacation, to be honest with you. I don't know why we're still doing this. We should come back in April.
Joe from Queens. Most people who, if you watch the show, know that you're from Buffalo and you've lived here for probably half your life. I'm just asking this because it gave me an idea, because I hear the Cheektowaga neighborhood garage group. By the way, thanks. That was a pretty solid insult. Western New York deserves better. I actually like that at the end. But anyway, my question for you was, for people who don't know, you lived in Buffalo for a long time. Where did you live in Western New York?
I was born on the West Side.
Me too.
But we were out when I was like 3 or 4 years old. We moved to Amherst. We were right on Maple Road and the corner of Donnelly, right across, like you could the Buffalo Shooting Club. You can see the UB Stadium from my old house. And so I was in Amherst. I was like right on the border of Amherst and Williamsville. I would have went to Sweet Home, but I went to Catholic schools and all that shit. So, which didn't do any good for me. Don't send your kids to Catholic schools. It's a fucking waste. But yeah, I was like on the border of Amherst and Williamsville. I would have went to Sweet Home if I did the public school shit. But yeah, that's where I was from. I hated it. I hate the suburbs. It's one of the worst things. Me and the missus are going to eventually move and I'm going to be Joe from Connecticut, probably within a couple of years. Not exactly thrilled with that, because I love the city. I enjoy it. I love being able to walk outside and I see restaurants and bars and I could get everything I want. I love melting pot, seeing people that aren't just rich white Caucasians like Amherst used to be. And it's gonna be a tough day when I gotta turn my Queens credit in and get a Connecticut. It's gonna be tough, man. But
I know you're born on the West Side. I was born and raised on the West Side. I spent all the way up until probably like my late teens, early 20s.
Yeah, my sister, because my parents are from Italy and they came here in '72, and all the paisans all moved to the West Side. So my sister, my mom, my dad.
The verbs in the live chat here.
Joe from the Birds. No, thank you, Chronic. No, but I mean that could be me at some point. But my sister lived out on the West Side from like '72 until '83, so she was there for 10 years. She went to Annunciation, I think it was called,
Yep.
So she went there, and then she, long story short, she had a party and there was drugs there, and she was like 14. I think she was like 11 at the time or something like that. 12. My mom caught her. She's like, "We're getting the hell out of here." And that's what they did. They sold the house and they moved to Amherst, and that was that. So I could have been on the West Side. I could have had street cred. Instead, no, I got rich cred. Sadly, of Amherst.
There's a couple in the live chat. There's a couple good questions that I kind of got marked, and I'm gonna circle back to at the end. Some fun stuff.
Yeah, I see you, Big Papa Bill, in there. Don't you keep? We're gonna throw down a little bit, buddy.
We will. We will get to that. But anyway, I never knew exactly where you. Like I said, I grew up in the West Side. I live in West Seneca now. I kind of transitioned out to the Burbs because that's where my wife was from, the South Towns. So, although she's from Lackawanna.
Like I do always play the what if I moved back game and like where would I live, and it definitely wouldn't be West Seneca. I'll tell you that much.
Why? West Seneca is actually pretty good. I like it. It's central. I'm 15 minutes from downtown. I'm 15 minutes from Orchard Park. I'm 15 minutes from fucking North Buffalo. About 20, 25 minutes or so from
my first girlfriend lived out in West Seneca. So no, no, I always thought like it wouldn't happen. Like I would always want to live in the city, like by like Elmwood in like Allentown over there. But that's probably not wouldn't happen. But Kenmore, I always like because it's like right on the border of Buffalo, and I think that would kind of be cool. But again, I don't.
I lived there briefly.
Yeah, but where my parents live now in Pendleton's awful. I've complained about. It's fucking terrible. Like if my parents lived in a cooler area, like maybe I would have went home and been like, in my 20s when I was like a struggling TV person, I would have maybe came home. But like when they lived there, because they moved there in 06 because they went to Vegas for a hot second and then came back like 5 years later. And Pendleton's just so. There are more breweries going over there though. I'll give them that, but that's about it.
Yeah, look, that's why I said West Seneca, not because I think West Seneca is the best or anything. I just like being central. I don't want to be anywhere that's too south because you got to go too far to get to anything, and vice versa. Where you said Sanborn and shit out there. All right, let's get to a couple more of these two.
Sure.
Another distapad. At Rondobe 8800 says, "Hey Pat, clean up your act. You just ruined your reputation. You owe listeners an apology for that garbage mouth of yours. We don't talk like that in our homes." Do you feel like someone's trying to trigger me right now with some of these comments?
What'd you say? What did I miss one of your episodes where you talk shit about someone?
Apparently so. That's fucking bullshit. We don't.
Good. I like that guy. Hey, buddy, follow me on Twitter or Blue Sky.
By the way, in the live chat, because you had mentioned a player-for-player trade, there's a nice little debate there. Let them argue amongst themselves or debate amongst themselves. But Micah Parsons was a name that came up. You said Dallas, like a possible trade. You're not trading James Cook from Micah Parsons straight up. But James Cook and some draft capital attached to it. If the Cowboys say we're not going to give Micah Parsons $40 million, he ain't getting Myles Garrett money. The Bills still need a big ticket end. Maybe that's something that's actually not even dead. Anyway, just a fun little interesting thought that they were talking about. Shout out
maybe next year.
No late to the chat, but she said hello everyone in the chat. Pat and Joe looking good. Thank you very much for that.
I definitely look good. Pat does not. Let's be honest.
That's fair.
Let's be honest.
3 Bills right now. Prominent Bills from last season, prominent names around the league are still out there as free agents right now. Von Miller, Amari Cooper, Rasul Douglas. Are you surprised that all 3 of these guys right now still are, as of this recording anyway, looking for work? A little bit surprised. Maybe it tells you that, hey, these guys were kind of more name and reputation than player right now, because again, all 3 of them are still unsigned, and we're pretty far into this process now. Free agency for the most part is over.
Douglas, I'm a little bit surprised. I thought I would have resigned Douglas. Like I didn't really have beef with him. I thought he was pretty solid. I know he didn't have that many turnovers, but I never went away this year being like, oh, they got to get rid of him. Like I thought he was fine. Von, not a surprise. I mean, he's 35. He's probably. I feel like he's going to be one of those guys that's going to wait until the end. Like he's not going to go to the training camp. He'll be like one of those dudes who's like, yeah, I'll sign at the end of August with someone. You know what I mean? Like kind of like that older guy. Amari, man, it's just I don't know what to make of. I don't know what to make of him because like I think about that first game against the Titans, he was hot. Like he was great in that game, and I was like, we were just like singing his praises. Like, thank God they got this guy. Then he didn't do shit for like 2 months, and they had like the one good game, and you know, he was pretty cool. Like, he wasn't like, I remember the one quote, he was like, I don't care about getting numbers. I just want to win. And I was like, okay, great. And he just didn't really do much. And I don't know what, it's just crazy to me because a year ago at this time, he was so good with the Browns. Like, he got Flacco when Flacco was played really well. It's because of Cooper. And like, there's like a part of me that wants him to go somewhere. And like, I don't want to say prove the Bills wrong, but like, if he goes somewhere and he lights it up, I'm just going to be like, okay, you know, this everyone eats shit is a little bit weird because, as I've said before, the everyone eats could be a detriment to your pass catchers because when you think about it, there are 3 like after the season ended and Brandon Beane sitting there and even Sean McDermott to a certain extent, so they're going over their pass catchers. They weren't like, oh, outside of Shakir, they weren't like, oh, you know, they all played team ball and everyone was happy and everyone got their 15 and 10 like a basketball analogy. No, they all were critical of Kincaid. They were critical of Coleman. They were critical kind of a Cooper. Oh, he didn't adjust to the new offense. It's like, well, shit. During the whole year, all you guys were talking about was everyone eats and everyone's great and everyone's spreading the ball around. And now when the season ends, you're like, well, you know what? You should have been a little bit better. You should have had better numbers. And it's like, well, shit. You've been So now everyone isn't good anymore. It's like everyone got food poisoning, and now we're like, oh well, so those guys got it, and they need to be better.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's a double standard of like, hypocrisy in a way.
When it comes to Rasul Douglas, I think his play definitely slipped some last year. He was more susceptible to getting beat last year, certainly, than he was the year before. I think it might be a money thing too. The fact that he's unsigned, he probably wants more than what a team is willing. Like the Bills, my gut tells me, I don't know this for sure, but my gut tells me the Bills would like Rasul Douglas back, but they would only like him back on a very team friendly, maybe incentive kind of deal.
Being over 30 doesn't help either for those guys.
No, absolutely not. But Rasul, I think he's holding out for money. When it comes to the other guys, I feel like action speaks louder than words. With Von Miller, when everything's on the line in the playoffs, he's only playing 16, 17 snaps in these games. That tells me that Sean McDermott doesn't have a lot of faith in him. And with Amari Cooper, kind of the same deal. I mean, I kept waiting for him to get ramped up. And when it gets to be money time, your boy's going to be out there 75, 80% of the snaps.
That's your
That never happened. Colleen had a pretty interesting comment about Cooper. Says, I wish they would have extended Cooper. He was rusty in the beginning because he was injured. When he wasn't injured, he was showing up compared to what they've been doing so far. He would have fit. I still think there's a fit for him. I don't think he's going to sign for the Bills. I'll tell you, New England, actually, I think of about a place where Amari could go in and still be relatively good. If he went to the Patriots, he'd instantly be their best receiver right now. I could totally see him going to a team like New England or the New York Jets. He'd be a really good number 2, maybe behind Garrett Wilson there as well. But yeah, it's really interesting. 3 prominent guys right now, and we're a couple of weeks into free agency. They're all out there. Von Miller, I'm with you. Wouldn't be surprised if he's still out there sometime this summer. Let me switch gears with you. I want to ask you a question. We got a lot of people who are either watching this live or, a lot more people will be listening to this throughout the week. People like to consume Bills content and news in varying ways. How do you feel, Joe? I'm talking to you. How do you feel about how fans want this team covered in terms of being there's different ways. You can be a very pro team, AKA homeristic on a lot of things. You know what I mean? Very emotional, like you're watching and covering the team purely as a fan. You're rooting for them. And if you're wondering what's a dead giveaway, in my opinion, it's always been us. When people say us or we couldn't run the ball well. We didn't do this. We didn't do that. To me, that's kind of like a dead giveaway there. So there's people who cover the team from that aspect.
Sure.
Fandom, homers, whatever you want to call it, okay? Just pro team. And then there's people who are very unemotionally, I should say, objective. Somebody like a Joe Biscaglia, somebody like a Jay Skursky, a Tyler Dunn. You don't get a sense that they really give 2 shits, Tim Graham, if the Bills are good or not. You get other guys where you could tell that they want the Bills to be good. I'm not saying either is right or wrong. I'm asking you a question. How do you feel about the way the team's covered and what fans want? Like, how do you think fans perceive the coverage, and how do you think fans, generally speaking, want coverage? I know it's a layered, nuanced question. So there's
there's a lot of. First off, you have to figure out who's your audience. It's funny. I always tend to think like the negative Bills fans and the positive Bills fans really hate each other, and like they just don't because whenever you listen to any of who I would term as an anti-Bills person or a pro-Bills person in terms of how they view things, especially in the content world, they're always going into the fringe of the opposite to make their point. Some fans feel like Josh Allen's overrated. Well, screw you, and stuff that's bullshit. It's okay, sure. One person thinks that, and I think it's. I could just say from my perspective, look, I want objectivity. I don't mind if you're a fan of the team. Like you and I both do this. We're fans,
sure.
And I do say we with them. I don't give a shit. I say we, whatever.
I try not to. It comes out.
It comes out. I don't give a fuck.
Though. You're not part of the team. You're covering a team. You're not part of it.
Yeah, and I get that. I probably would prefer you to not be a fan of the team over, being a fan. I probably prefer that, but I can live with both. As long as you're objective and you're asking hard questions and you're not posting golf photos and you're not doing all that shit that I've complained about religiously. That's kind of just And like you're digging for stories and not kissing the Pagula's asses. That's kind of what I want. And I do feel that there are fans that want that too. But yes, there are people who probably don't. I have a text thread that I'm on. I think everyone is. And I have like Bills fans on the text thread, like my friends. Like I have my cousin who is, I would say, is a lunatic, and he hates everything about the Bills. He's always that guy that's complaining. Makes me look like
we all got one of those.
Yeah, like makes me look like I'm freaking Chris Brown, in terms of like, like this is how he is. And then I have another person on that thread who is like loves everything the Bills do. Everything's great. Everything's fine. Like always believed. So you have a lot of masters to serve. And I just want people to just be honest. And that's kind of what I think a lot of people want. Just be honest. Like, be honest about your fandom if you like the team and you're a fan, but also be honest on how you cover them. And you're not going to be dictated. And I think that's what fans want. But, there are platforms out there, like in terms of the content bros, and I'm talking like the independent people that have like, Rumblings, Cover One, Built in Buffalo. I don't fucking know. There's like 1,000 of them. They seem more of like their fans, and they kind of stick up for the Bills, a lot, and they do, and they're kind of obnoxious about it. And that's
I'm doing some own. I feel like if you're going to have that perspective, you need to own it and you need to be open about it. To me, there's nothing worse than if somebody is very pro team all the time, but they say that they're not. Like if you're going to be that way, be that way.
But also,
I'm a fan of the Bills. I don't really run from that, but I'm a very emotional person, so I get very, very, very critical of this team.
I would also want them to be honest and say I was wrong about something. Like I do that all the time on this podcast with you. Like I'll be like, I thought the Bills were going 9-8 this year, and every week I told you, I was an idiot. Like every week, there's not enough of that in terms of players, in terms of this or that. But they're always, instead of pointing, they're breaking their hands, patting themselves on the back when they're right, and then deflecting when they're wrong to something else. So like. I guess that's kind of where I'm at, but Buffalo's a weird market. Like, look, I've been in New York City since 2002, and like people here are ruthless, and like you always hear about that shit. Like, it's never good enough for the Yankees. It's never good enough for like this team or that team. Like, they got to win World Series or championships, or it's a failure. Because it's New York, and the fans here are crazy, and they are. Go listen to talk radio here; they're all nuts.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and in Buffalo, it's there's people who are nuts and there's people who are more. It's a kind of a melting pot, I would say, of depending on where you are. So
times have changed, though. I think, Joe. I think the days of the newspapers with the surly columnists who will say the Bills fucking suck. Here's 800 words why. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
People that turns people off a lot. It's easy because there's so many alternatives now. If you're too negative about a team, if you and I came on this, the Bills have won five straight AFCs. They've been in the AFC Championship game 2 times. If you and I come on here week after week and criticize every little thing, people are eventually going to say, fuck these guys. They're Debbie Downers. They're negative. And I'm going to go listen to 20 other podcasts out there that are going to be a lot nicer to the team. 20 years ago, you and I know this. You're a media guy. You've always followed the media too. 20 years ago, you didn't have that option. Here's the Buffalo News shit. Here's WGR. Maybe there's one local rag or something. Take it or fucking leave it. That's what you're going to get. Nowadays, if you're too negative, if you're too surly towards the team, people are just going to find other outlets. Because that's kind of what I'm getting at. I think things have changed. But let me ask you one other question, too. And I want to be careful because I don't want to sound like I'm being like a hater, because I'm not. This is mostly
you're a hater, panderer.
Players, like I've noticed now, my friends over at Cover One, man. Some of these Bills players, they're friends of mine. We beef, we bitch and bicker all the time, man. But those are my people at the end of the day. In fact, some of them are going to be coming on the show over the next few weeks for my Bills mock draft series. Here's what I wanted to ask you.
I'll be deleting that podcast on my thread. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Here's what I want to ask you. All right, so, and by the way, huge props to them for this. So Michael Hoyt and Terrell Bernard, and now Greg Rizzo's coming on. They've had active players on this football team on the film room, the show that Eric and Anthony Prohaska do. And these guys are coming on and they're breaking down film with these guys. I want to be clear here. This ain't me hating. I think that part of it is fucking awesome. And if those guys ever wanted to come on my show, I would bump you in a second. I'd be like, Joe from Queens, don't need you tonight. Michael Hoyt's coming on and he wants to talk about his new contract and what he likes to do with the Bills. So again, not being a hater. I think that aspect of it is awesome. But here's my question. Don't you think, and it would be for me, and I'm saying for me, yes, it would be very hard. If you have these guys and you get to know them, Tamar Hamlin's dad's always throwing props at these people. You know what I'm saying? Um, isn't it hard to be objective and critical of a player if they're not playing well when you have a relationship with these players, especially if you're not a trained professional sports media person, and you might have a harder time being able to be objective about that. You know what I'm saying? It's not me hating, it's just me asking a question here. I think it's harder. Not saying you can't do it. I think it's harder to be objective when you have relationships.
Oh yeah, I
with
mean,
these
I don't think it's just a cover. It's a content bro issue. I think it's an issue across the board issue. You know, I think even
Right.
if you go to mainstream media, yeah, like I'll use an example. Your boy Sully used to love Ryan Fitzpatrick. He used to love Fred Jackson and George Wilson because he had a good relationship with them. But then
Mhm.
he hated Tyrod Taylor, who was kind of the same guy as Fitz, because he didn't have as good of a relationship. And I do think like if you have a good relationship with a player or even the ownership, you're definitely less like going to be critical because you have that relationship with those guys and that team. I could say like from my perspective, back in my Buffalo Wins days when I used to own a site, like, you know, God, a long time ago now.
Mhm.
Um, I remember the Bills one time invited us to go. It was the unveiling of their jerseys when 2011 it was, and they invited us. They invited us and Rumblings, and I was like, great. And I had this guy who used to write for me, Mark. He went and he got to go to the locker room and hang out and took
Yeah.
pictures. And I remember afterwards. I think like maybe for like a week or two, I there was something in my head that I wanted to go easier on the Bills a little bit. Like I didn't want to be critical of Ralph, and then the shit did like phase out. Like I don't know, a couple of weeks because I thought to myself, "Don't be a bitch. Like do it. You know who cares? Like they got your uniforms. Like what?" And you know, I think sometimes that even happened when I have heard from different people when the Sabres used to be very blog friendly. This is during the Ted Black era.
That was part of it.
You were part of it, yeah, and I went to one of them, but the big reason why they were really friendly was they only cared about the people who were, like, super positive about them, the blogs, and I know that for
Mhm.
a fact, I've heard it from a couple of people, that's what
That's right.
they wanted, and they were super nice to people, and then I don't think there's a reason why I think when you think about it, and the Sabres blogs have all died, and the only thing that's, like, left is, like, Expected Buffalo, and I don't think it's an accident that couple of years ago they said no more blogs because everyone was a dick to them. I'm sure if the blogs were nice to them, they would have all like still had their credentials. You know, it does work that way. And
Oh, Yurden's one of my favorite people and a damn good writer. He covers hockey and he's very, I'd say he's pro Sabres. He's credentialed to cover the Sabres. And he's got a blog, but one of the very few. You know, he's got noted hockey, but you know, Joe's not known to be harsh of the team. I ain't never gonna get a credential to cover the Buffalo Sabres. I can tell you that right now. And if I did, I probably would last 2 games before they revoked it forever. But
mm,
now you're not wrong. You're right. And again, there's a couple players on the Bills. I'll admit this. I'm not going to tell you who the players are, but there's a couple players that I have some form of relationship with. I'd have a hard time being critical of them. Damone Harris is a very good family friend of mine. If he's a free agent, I know for a fact the Bills are one of the teams that he's talked to. If he ended up on the Buffalo Bills, I would have a very, very hard time being critical. So that's not me. I just want to make sure that it's crystal clear. This isn't me throwing shade at an outlet like Cover One because they get football players on their show. I think that's fucking actually awesome to be able to go through the film and hear Greg Rizzo's perspective on a play because we might be thinking something completely different. I'm just suggesting that I think it's harder to be objectively critical when you have
yeah,
relationships with players
it's probably
and they're coming on your show.
I
That's
would say it's probably harder for them because they don't have bosses. They're bosses themselves.
sure.
Whereas it's harder for them to like to be critical of those guys. Whereas if I work for an outlet, and let's just say Jay Skursky has like a great relationship with Player X, and he's and I'm like the editor, and
Mhm.
he's like, well, I don't want to be critical of him because he gives me scoops. I'm gonna be like, what scoops does he give to you? And if he doesn't give you anything, then no, you got to be critical of him. You know, that's kind of how I would view it because it's like we're paying you, so it's like there's like the monetary, like you're getting paid. Where like, you know, Eric doesn't have to answer to anyone. That he's the boss and that's it. So, I always think about the film stuff. Like, I tried to watch him having Hoyt on the other night, and this is definitely me, and I'm throwing more shade to me than I'm them. I could not get into the film stuff. I just couldn't. And I was trying to, and I was so lost. And I don't know how many fans are like that in terms of and look, I'm an idiot, I guess, and I could not understand.
You're not an X's and O's type of.
I really tried. Look,
you try.
I tried, and like there's some things I know, and I'm like, I'm fucking lost here, and I just didn't know what they were talking about. And like again, that's me. I'm an idiot, and like I'm assuming their audience are football savvy and they know what this formation is,
or they want to learn more about plays.
Yeah, and I just was lost, and like I tried to look, good for them. I have mixed feelings about that site. I think some people are good, some people can fucking fall into a cliff, but yeah, like good for them. I'm glad they got those players. Like I don't know how they get them. I mean, if they get them through agents or the players themselves, I know the team isn't fond of Cover One because Cover One takes all their footage and uses it, and they're supposed to pay for it. And I don't know how they're not getting away with it or getting, sued, but they're not. So
sure,
good for them.
And again, they certainly have an audience for it. I think it's really intriguing, and I would have any player on the team on this show in a second. So I'm not
sure.
saying, oh, Patrick wouldn't have a player on the team because he's afraid he's going to be critical. No, fuck that. I absolutely would. I'm saying that. And they're not the only ones. There's others outlets. I know Michael White just did a show with this show called Do Champions over the weekend. I didn't get a chance to listen to it yet, but I know those guys, and he was on with them too. By the way, he's certainly trying to make a presence. His presence.
Who the fuck is Michael White? Who's Mike?
Michael White.
Oh, Hoyt. Oh, okay. There's Michael White
for the Bills. Right. I'm just saying, my take is I think it's when you have relationships and investments in players, it can be harder to be critical of them. But again, not every fan wants that hard-nosed objective. There's a big market for people who are very pro Buffalo. They want to hear positivity more often.
Sure.
I'm sure. I'm saying there's a market for that, and then there's still the old school market where give it to me like it is, man. Don't be a fan. Tell me what you really think. That's all.
I just wish there were more people who pushed on the ownership group. It's a joke. I've bitched about this before. I'm going to bitch about it again. It's a joke that Terry Pagula hasn't talked about the Bills since 2019. It's a fucking joke.
Well, it's mainly Sabres. I mean,
but he hasn't talked. There's been more stuff with the Bills about the stadium and shit, and he hasn't talked about any of that. And I don't think that goes. I think that does not happen in any other market. And I think here there's not enough people there, and there's not enough bosses who want to press. Look, the Bills run that town. If I were to say something, and that's probably why you hear a lot of positive shit and fan content, and like we gotta talk to fucking Elvis and all these other people, and it's fine. Like I salute, I guess. Sure. But they have so much money with like advertising, working through stations and working through the paper and even working for like TV stations as well. Like it's just, that's my biggest complaint. Like I wish someone would fucking like get them on the record. And I know it's easier said than done, but they get away with that. They can just be like, yeah, fuck you. We're not going to have our owner available. Sorry.
Let me ask you another media question here. And it's
sure
about hockey, but it's about media just in general. Mike Harrington from the Buffalo News put out a tweet over the weekend. I'm going to read it to you. They're the only outlet, the Buffalo News, on the road right now. The Sabres are on a road trip. They beat Winnipeg today. Big surprise in that game, actually 5-3. But anyway, this was Mike's tweet. He said, the Buffalo News is the only outlet on the road with the Sabres. You might see quotes elsewhere or aggregated, but we are the only ones on the trip.
Oh, God.
Support local journalism and consider a digital subscription just $1 for the first 3 months. First of all, he's not wrong. They are the only outlet out there. Okay. Also, he was promoting the paper, support local journalism. I could agree with that 100%. Here's my thing, though. Well, he's not wrong, but my question for you is, does anybody care? Does anybody care in 2025 as a consumer that the Buffalo News is the only media outlet at a hockey game in Winnipeg in March or wherever they were? Where were they the day before that? Minnesota. Minnesota, Winnipeg. They're the only outlet there. He's not wrong. Does anybody care in today's age about being the only outlet there?
It's tough.
I don't think people care anymore. It sucks. It's bullshit that your quotes, they do get aggregated and stuff. That's unfair and that sucks. I'm speaking from a fan perspective. I don't think anybody gives a shit that you're the only outlet there. People don't care. Matt Fairborn from The Athletic, Joe Yerdon from Noted Hockey, other guys, they could cover this game. They could have a recap. I'm going to read it just the same as somebody from whether they're at the game or not. That's basically what I'm telling you.
Well, okay, there's a couple things. First, it's tough right now to say people would care because it's the Sabres, and I think the interest is completely low and terrible right now. Like, no one...
Even if they're undefeated.
No, hold on. I think there's a point. Like, let's just say the Bills did that. Like, let's just say the Bills... Everyone goes and travels for the Bills games. Everyone. The Athletic, everyone does. Would people care, like, then more a little bit? I don't know. It's tough to say because it's like, you can get those interviews anywhere. Like, you can get them on the team websites. They're going to post them. Now, who's asking the questions? Obviously, if...
Well, it's Mike. He's the only one there.
Well, it would be Mike, and then I think maybe the Sabres have someone there, or I don't know. Maybe they have there's an AP stringer there. I don't know. It depends what happens. It's day by day. It really depends on, this road trip. And I haven't followed it as well as I probably should. Like, Terry Pegula's on the road, so maybe I don't know what Mike has asked. Like, if Mike's asking, like, hey, how do you feel about Terry being on the road? To the players, or have you talked to him? Like, that's probably what I would ask. I have no idea if Mike has asked that in the morning skates or anything like that. Obviously, Mike's doing that because he's trying to get subscriptions. He's also trying to take a dump on GR and The Athletic because they don't sell their guys there, and they all have their little fucking Cold War between the three of them. It's like Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and freaking CM Punk over there. They all hate each other, and like they just gotta throw little fucking jabs at each other. I don't know if people care. Like, I feel like if you go on these road trips, you're there to, try to cultivate sources and because like you're in the hotels and you're on the area and you're trying to maybe meet up with a couple players. Maybe, I don't know if that's easy or said and done because they do have off days, and maybe you can meet with them and talk to them off the record, buy them a shot. I have no fucking clue. I don't go on the road, but it doesn't mean as much as it used to be. I'm sure if Mike listened to this, he would yell at us and be like, well, it does, and like breathe fire on us.
Let's go back to my first question, though. This is what I'm talking about. I like Mike. Mike Harrington is a friend of mine to me.
You're his one. No, I'm
He's been on the show multiple times. He has met me in person. We've had wings and we've done a show. I ask Mike a lot of questions. He's very accommodating to me. I like him, but I disagree with him right now, and I feel like I'm being objectively critical of what he tweeted because I don't think fans care. And you could be critical of people just like these content creators can be critical of players, but if you do it respectfully and you don't make it personal, if they take issue with it, I kind of think that's bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, he's trying to get people to buy the paper,
and I don't blame him.
And he feels shitting on the competition is the way to do it. And it does happen. Look, we're going to stick with wrestling here a little bit, but back in the WWE versus WCW days, they used to talk shit about each other all the time. And like, this is where the best wrestle. And there's no like, wrestlers coming out with with garbage cans and being like a dumpster guy or a garbage man, like Duke's Dumpster Drosy or whatever. He's trying to sell it. Would I sell it that way? I probably wouldn't sell it that way, but in terms of like, do fans care if you're there or not? It's tough. As I said, I think it goes back to the Sabres being shitty. Like, I don't think there's a big interest right now in them. It just isn't. No one's going to the games. You have told me before privately, I'm breaking the fifth wall or fourth wall, whatever here, that when you do Sabres subjects, the numbers aren't as good as if they are with the Bills.
They go right in the shitter, a lot of them.
Exactly.
If I put the word Sabres in the title and I care.
Yeah, no one cares. I mean,
it's a bad decision to have a very Sabre-centric. I do it anyway sometimes, but I know that it's not going to be nearly good.
Yeah, and I feel that way. So when Mike says that, I'm just like, well, dude, no one gives a shit. The Sabres are terrible. Everyone is so like, just no one cares unless something giant happens. Like, like Darlene wants to get traded, or Lindy Ruff benches someone, or there has to be a big freaking thing that happens. like for people to give a shit. And right now they don't give a shit. I don't give a shit what anyone says. They don't give a shit.
Look, I agree with you in terms.
That's what I'm saying. Like in terms of like, if this was the Bills and he's saying that, if the Sabres were great and he was the only outlet out there, I would say, yeah, it would probably mean something because the Sabres are fucking great, but they're shitty and no one cares about them. I listen to GR a lot. And I'll listen. I was after the one game they lost the other night. I forgot what it was. And the next day I was listening to the morning show. They didn't talk about the Sabres till like 8:00. Like I look at the chapters on the Odyssey ad. I'm like, hey, I wanted to hear them talk about the Sabres. And they were talking about the Bills, NCAA, and the Sabres at the 8:00 hour. I remember they would never ever have had that when the Sabres were like, even during the part of the drought when they had Eichel and it was kind of exciting-ish. They would talk about them. Now they don't. No one wants to talk about them. They're a plague. So that's how I feel about like with Harrington's thing. Like, I don't think no one gives a shit that he's there by himself because the Sabres are terrible. Yeah. But if it was the Bills, yeah, I do think they would care. Well, but again, and Mike does ask, he has asked hard questions. I mean, I haven't listened.
He's far and away though. If there's one reporter from either team that covers either team that will hold.
He's an asshole. And I say that with all love.
Yeah, with all love. Yeah, he will ask those questions and get a lot of pushback, I'm sure, from the team. Look, at the end of the day, about that tweet, that's what it is. He's trying to sell for the company he works for.
But he's also shitting on the other people. He's definitely doing that.
You're right, because yes, he is definitely selling for the newspaper, as he should, and I would too. But yes, he's also clearly taking a pot shot at the other outlets for not financing, to send them on the road as well. My whole point was, I just don't think, and Mike ain't going to like listening to this, I just don't think fans care. I don't think that means anything to them. If Matthew Fairburn, and I'm just saying him because he's the first name that pops out, the hockey media is way smaller than the Bills media. If he writes on the game and he'll just say, because they won on Sunday, Ryan McLeod told reporters after the game, if Matthew Fairburn uses a quote that he sees from a press conference on TV and says told reporters or whatever, no, I don't think the fans care. I've just maybe they should.
No, I don't think they do.
They don't at the end of the day. Let's before we get out of here, let's do your segment, your truth and false. Right, that's what we're doing. True and false. Yeah. We started.
I've also finished my beer, which has never happened. Usually I have
it's definitely time to pick up the pace. Definitely want to get done in the next 10 minutes here. So go ahead. Give me your true and false.
Okay. So it's for people who have missed this. It's 5 categories. It's the Sabres, Bills, music, television, and movies. Yes. Sorry. Right. Yeah. Okay. And then a bonus. Okay. That I pull out of my ass. So Bills related, true or false?
Okay.
Brandon Beane will leave the Bills within the next 5 years, whether it's fired or quits, whatever. True or false?
5 years is a long time.
That makes him, just so you know, he would be the GM for 13 years.
I would say false only because I just don't have any inclination that he would move on, that he would want to move on, or that he would get fired.
Okay.
3 would have been an easy false. 5 is not as easy because 5 years is a long, long time in the NFL, and you're talking 13 years, like you said.
So you're saying false. He's not going to leave within the next 5 years.
Yes, false.
So you think he's going to be a 13-year GM?
Yes.
He's going to be here for a while.
And right now, that could change quickly, but as you're asking me that today, I say yes.
Okay. All right. Interesting. Okay. Sabres. True or false? Lindy Ruff should be fired at the end of the season.
Oh, God. Should be fired? False. Will he be back? Flip a coin, because I think it's 50.
Why don't you think he should be fired?
Because it's his first year. Also, I'm going to, by the way, I'm a cheap little plug here. Tomorrow night, folks, 9 p.m. Monday Night Live, Chad DeDominis is going to be on with me.
Yeah.
I bring that up because I will ask Chad this. The assistants, he was not allowed to pick his own assistants. He had Terry Baguli, who criticized him earlier, fucking made him keep the same assistants. And from everything I've heard, and I'll talk to Chad about this, he's just been a disaster. So I think that's been an issue. And just, I don't know, man, another one and done coach, especially a name like that. I feel like maybe you and I will talk about next week, Lindy Ruff's legacy being tarnished. they're tainted this season. We'll talk about that next week more in detail. But I don't think you could fire him after 1 year. Does he not want to be here after this year? That's a different question. But you said fired. I'm going to say false.
Okay, good. All right. Television. Ric Flair is the greatest wrestler of all time.
Ric Flair is the greatest wrestler of all time.
True or false?
Are we including the whole package, like in-ring prowess?
Whatever you want. I just said wrestler.
Like,
I didn't say promo, wrestler, anything. If you want to, you got to hear promos. Right, you got to watch him wrestle.
It's, yes, true. He is the greatest wrestler of all time. However, God, I wish he would have just fucking went away over the last 5 to 10 years, especially the last 5 years. He's just embarrassing himself on a regular basis. But if you're looking at his career, what he done in the ring, the achievements, the promos, the storylines, everything he's done, I don't think there's ever been anybody actually better than him. So no, it's true.
Okay, cool. Movies.
Okay.
The best sports cameo in a movie was Mike Tyson in The Hangover. True or false? You saw The Hangover, I'm assuming.
I did see this. And by the way, if you haven't figured this out yet by now, I don't know these questions until Joe asked me. Oh, God, the best sports cameo. I say true for now. However, come next week, this might be changed to a false, and I might have to point out an exception. I can't think of. You know what? I'll say.
Okay,
false.
I'm gonna leave you some guys.
I already say false. I already say
why?
False.
Why?
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Airplane when he was the pilot.
I was.
That's what
that was the one that I was thinking of. Yeah. So just real quick, because I googled this. So Brett Favre, remember he was in Something About Mary. Dan Marino was in Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. He was kidnapped.
Mm-hmm.
I guess Lance Armstrong was in Dodgeball. I never saw Dodgeball. Derek Jeter was in The Other Guys. Cam Neely was in Dumb and Dumber. I do not remember that.
Yeah.
And then Roger Clemens was in Kingpin. That's a movie I never saw.
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, Mike Ditka. Bruce Smith was in. Oh, come on, dude. What about OJ as Nord? Well, actually, that wouldn't count as Nordberg because OJ. He was
almost like a star. He was a co-star.
Yeah, he was Nordberg too, and like that, he wasn't like his.
Yeah, but he had a part in that. That's not just.
Yeah, but he wasn't. Yeah, he wasn't though OJ in that movie. So, but even though, okay, but I respect you. That's a good one. I have to go with. Yeah, that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I mean, Airplane's a great comedy. It's one of the best. I love that movie.
Yeah, it's an awesome movie.
Okay.
1980, that movie, I believe, was made.
Yeah.
45 years
I watched that movie 1,000 times as a kid. I loved it. I haven't seen it in years, but we should do a watch along one day. Anyways, moving on. Music.
Okay.
People who hate the Killers' Mr. Brightside song at Bills games are just haters. True or false?
It's probably true, but then I'm a hater, I guess, because I don't really care for that song. It's grown on me because I hear it so much, and it's a big Bills thing. And sometimes when you hear things so much, it just gets embedded in your mind, whether you want it to or not. But it's probably true. They're just haters. Why would you hate that song?
Yeah, I mean, I do like that song, and I don't. I feel like everyone at the stadium loves it, but people who don't go to the games may not love it as much because, like, it did get like Billsified, where it got a little bit annoying in the media coverage. Like, I think I mentioned this before. Like, Johnny Goo recorded a Buffalo version of it, like a cover, because like we need a Buffalo-fy, and I'm like, why do you need a Buffalo-fy this? Like, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, that was
corny.
That was a bit much, man. And
yeah, I was like, dude,
I love some of my Bills Mafia people, but they were in the studio for that, and I'm like, come on, man.
Come on, like leave it alone. Like we don't need we don't need an origin story from the freaking columnist of the Buffalo News sports department. Like, no, dude, like just let it be cool. Like, it's cool, but like I feel like if you went to the stadium, I would love to be drunk. That's a good drunk song. I like the Killer. I mean, I'm not gonna be the biggest fan, but some of their songs are very fun. And okay, so bonus.
Mm-hmm.
He passed away this weekend, George Foreman. Did George Foreman have the best active post-career of all time? So after he retired, did he have the best career of all time?
I you know what? Off the top of my head, I would have, I don't know. Again, this is something in my pop 15, 20 minutes. I might think of someone better, but I could tell you this. I'd say true for right now because, I mean, he was incredible. George Foreman grill is
Grill,
more
yeah,
famous than anything he ever did in the ring for generations of people anyway.
yeah.
Young people, some really older people would know Foreman is the fighter more, some great fights with Ali and just during that era, that golden era of heavyweights. But yeah, I mean, the Foreman grill, he's a very likable person, very, a great smile. Yeah, very, very great career after.
I'll you and I have talked about this, how like I think, or no, we haven't talked about this, but I've seen you mention how like big of a boxing fan you were like in the 90s, because like HBO was like
I
had
love boxing.
all the big it was great. And I'm as a kid, like I didn't know the nuances, but I loved boxing too. And then it just, I don't know, after Tyson and Holyfield and like Lennox Lewis retired, it just died. But I'll always remember when George Foreman came back, and like he retired, he came back and he looked completely different. He was bald, fat, and like just like you couldn't knock him down. It was impossible to knock him down. And I'll always remember when he beat Michael Moore, and Michael Moore was the world champion. I was at my parents' pizzeria watching that. And my dad, who at the time, I think he was like 47, 48, and like when he knocked him down, like he knocked him out and won the world championship. It was
that was incredible.
It was the biggest upset like ever. And my dad was like jumping up and down, like 47 years old or 45, whatever the fuck his age was. Look at him. And I was like, I couldn't believe it. And that was just an amazing moment that I will not forget. And there's moments I remember when, like, you always remember moments, and there's only like 2 or 3 boxing moments I can remember off the top of my head, but that was incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And again, I'm going to take on and get back to you next week. Tony Romo's become John Madden post career too. I mean, well, I guess it's kind of the same career because whether it's coaching, broadcasting, it was still the same career. Anyway, let's get to I want to end this. We'll go back to the comments for a couple of quickies here, some fun ones. Ranger Corpse, my guy.
Oh, I saw that comment.
Joe from Queens, no pizza in New York City is terrible. I'll stick up for you there. I disagree. Here's a hot take. I think pizza in New York City is better than pizza in Buffalo.
110%.
You agree with that?
It's much better. It's because of the water. The ingredients are better here, but the water is what makes it good. And I like a thin slice. I like a thin slice of pizza that you can fold. I don't like the breaded, like Sicilian. I think Buffalo pizza is fine. It's good. But when it's too doughy, it's just a fucking sandwich. Like, no.
Yeah.
You're wrong, dude. Whatever your name is.
Big Papa Bill. That was Ranger Corpse. Big Papa Bill says, what's the best pizza spot in Buffalo, Pat and Joe? Do you have one? I mean, you're not here that often anymore. You don't really eat that much when you are.
I mean, I should give a shout out to my Uncle Gino. Uncle Gino on Brighton by Kenmore East. Gino's Pizza. He's had that pizzeria since like 1984. That's really good pizza. So go there. But he was really good. Amherst Pizza Al, I really liked. Like I've gone there a couple times. They have the steak pizza. I've really enjoyed. I don't know. We never talk. Say I have more of a connection or feel for pizza than wings. I know you can talk about wings till tomorrow, and I'm like, yeah, wings. Pizza. I love crazy pizzas. Even though like I probably would have liked Macy's until fucking Nate Gurry made it annoying, and I like didn't give a shit about it anymore. But I like toppings galore, and I say that because Amherst Ale has like a steak pizza there. It's like a banana pepper pizza they have there. It's great. I literally like it. But I need pizza with toppings on it. Like I would get the mega deal at Domino's back in the day where it was like 90 toppings on it for $10. I would get all of them. I didn't care. And I'm sure, I don't know, what's your ideal toppings on pizzas real quick?
I'm very simple, man. I just like cheese pepperoni.
You're so boring.
Yeah, I'm not into mushrooms and sausage and chicken finger pizzas or any of that shit, man. It's just like a regular old pizza, whether it's just cheese or cheese and pepperoni. Look, man, I can't not say I've done 50 shows in Imperial. I don't think I could get away with not saying Imperial. I will say though, the other one I grew up with on the West Side, it's kind of fallen off, and I got to see if it's fallen off for good or if I just had a bad visit there last time. No, I love Lenova too, but Mr. Pizza. It was on Grant Street when I grew up or Hampshire. Grant. I was right the first time. And now it's on Elmwood Avenue. It was on Elmwood and Bird. It's been there for a long time. I grew up, Mr. Pizza was my favorite spot, but it's been lacking the last time for sure. It might have been the last 2 times. So I got to see. But anyway, that was definitely one of my favorites. I think
chicken finger pizza, by the way, is the best pizza you can get. Chicken finger pizza.
Big Papa must be, I think he's trying to troll you a little bit.
Yeah. I don't like this.
Joe, all he can do is talk and get hurt. He's not a real wrestler.
Getting hurt. Yo, Big Papa Bill. He's been wrestling now. He got hurt a little bit. He's awesome. And by the way, the reason why he says that is because for people not watching the video, I am wearing a CM Punk hoodie from Roots of Fight. It's one of my favorite. We need to get them as a sponsor.
I know, because
I bought a bunch of hoodies. Their shit is hot.
Man, you're like Diamond Joe over there spending money on
Yeah.
those $90 hoodies, man.
Yeah, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm
too big for my bridges. But
yes.
real quick here, then we're gonna get out. So it's CM Punk, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, triple threat. Man, are you happy with creative the way that's played out? I would have done so. There's something I would have done differently.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's still 4 weeks left. The 3-way should be fun, and I am looking forward to the promos between those guys. Would I have rather probably seen a Punk versus Roman match than a triple threat? Yeah, possibly, yeah. But they've been carrying this on for a while, and there's good stories there. The problem, the issue might be there's too many triple threats right now that are happening. But you know, in terms of like, there's a women's one, there's this one. But we'll see. I think it's been okay. I mean, it's so weird because like the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks now, they've been in Europe and the crowd has just been fucking fire. And it's kind of hard if you're like, this isn't really that good, but then you get caught up in the crowd. Like, the crowd's happy. I should be happy too, you know, but it's fine. I mean, it's better than what it was when they were Vince still, but you know, maybe it's a little bit of a, like, yeah, could there have been different matches? Like Gunther Jey Uso is still kind of crazy to me.
Yeah, I would have done that. That's where I would have went. You could get Punk versus Roman, or you could get Seth versus Roman, and then either Seth Rollins or Punk. Take your pick. They should have won the Rumble, one of those two guys, and went to wrestle Gunther at WrestleMania. Props to Jey Uso for getting over. I mean, the crowd, you know, the yeet, all that stuff is really cool. But dude can't wrestle, man. It's just, he's not a good. He's shown the last couple of years in big stages. He's had lousy performances in the ring, and I just don't think fans care about that. They're going to give them a moment. Anyway, maybe we'll talk more wrestling next week. Last one here from Mark. Serious question. Is there a Buffalo radio station that is an alternative from WGR? I'm a lifelong Bills fan, but don't live in New York. Unfortunately, not really. No. In terms of radio, no. But again, this is 2025, buddy. You can listen to a podcast anywhere. This one, Buffalo Rumblings, Cover One, Locked On Bills every day. You could get your Bills talk fix. Now, what you can't get on all these shows, including this one, are call-ins. So if you're listening to a show, you know, to call in and have your voice heard, then no. But if you're, you know, just for Bills talk, just the podcast world has changed the game, man. So that's kind of suck that there's only one radio station.
Hey, you know, they've tried
markets though, like other NFL markets. I'm sure the big cities like New York, LA, Boston, and many, but I wonder how many NFL markets are a one radio station town for sports talk.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I think if you have like 3 teams, like you probably have 2 because you split the radio rights. But you know, maybe because like I think what happens is like Buffalo, you know, GR has both the radio rights, and I think that's the big, you know, X factor in all this. They've had that since 2011, I believe. They've had the radio rights for both teams, and you know, they've tried. I mean, I remember Brad Ryder and Nick Mandola went to go do WEC, and that didn't put a dent in anything.
Tim had a show week, but it was only weekly on that.
Yeah, Tim.
They were giving it a run with the Bull for a while.
Had one, and Sully and Bucky had their show in freaking every day, and that they didn't do shit.
To answer that question, then there have been outlets and people who have tried to really become a force in radio, sports talk radio, but it just, in Buffalo, it's just never worked out. So
yeah, I think you just have to have, you know, you just have to have, I think, the rights to the team. I think that's the only time that it was competitive was when it was NSA versus GR. When NSA had the Sabres, GR didn't even have the Bills. I think freaking 97 Rock did, and that was when you had competition. I think the only way that ever happens if someone steals the Bills or Sabres and has their own radio.
Yeah, Mike said WGR is a joke, so unprofessional. I don't agree with that at all.
No, I think they're good. I think their hosts are pretty good. You know, their hosts are solid.
They're good. Yeah, they're solid.
They're much better than they used to be. I feel like they used to be a little bit pandering, but they've been much better.
Sure. No, agree 100%. All right, guys, let's call that a wrap for this one. What a good solid hour and a half. I like these kind of shows though, because again, you spend 90 minutes talking about the Bills. There's only so many topics this time of year you can start covering. You know, we'll be getting into more, much to Joe's chagrin, we'll be getting into more draft stuff soon.
That's not too much of a chagrin. I mean, I can fake the draft stuff. I don't hate the draft stuff that much. I hate OTAs and mini camp and training camp. That's what I hate. Like, that's bullshit. Draft, I can look. I'm tired, man. I can complain. I got a 20-month-old. I'm barely alive, so I'm barely fucking living here, man.
I want to thank Joe, of course, and I want to thank everybody. If you're watching us on the video side, a very active chat, not just with comments for us, but what I've noticed over the last few weeks, dude, is people get in their own sub conversations and debates that they don't even shit what we're saying. They want to talk to each other, which is really cool, man. I like that a lot. And when you go back and listen, or if you go back and watch, you'll be able to go back and see that live chat replay.
I'm pitching next week. We should just do a live show where we just interact with the commenters, and that's it. That's all we do. Like, we don't need anything. We should. Like, we could just talk because they have so many comments. Like, you start 4 of them, and there was like 30 in the chat, 40.
Joe is dead inside, man.
I'm so dead inside, man. I don't even know what fucking time.
Ralph and Chuck Dickerson dumping on the Bills.
Rest in peace, but who loves your baby? Oh God, here we go.
Oh, I got it, man. Hold on. Right there, my guy.
You're
the coach. The coach.
I met him a couple times.
$36, by the way, for a bobblehead that the head's fucking kind of bent to the right too. I don't like.
Spent $36 on that, but you won't give me any money for my time on Sundays. Nothing. You'll buy a fucking doll.
I gotta make sure the studio looks dope, man. But
yes.
This is
Pat puts a lot of money into his damn studio, but me, I got a Bud Light once for doing a live remote with him once. Sad.
All right, guys, that's going to do it. Thank you again, Joe. Thank you, everybody who watched live, everybody who's going to be listening to this on Monday and throughout the week. Appreciate you very much. I'm going to be back with a brand new episode. Actually going to be live again on Monday night, 9 p.m., Chad DeDominicis, and we're going to talk a lot of hockey, a little bit of Bills as well. See how that goes. Talk to you guys then.